Here is a short introduction to transmission electron microscope, followed by demonstrations by Michael Elbaum. The first element is C1 lens, which controls the brightness. When C1 lens is stronger, the focal length is smaller, then more electrons are excluded from the target and the brightness is lower. The second lens is C2, that includes the aperture of C2 and the strength of the lens C2. Both determine the convergence of the beam and the size that illuminate the target. In the case of TEM, in opposite to scanning TEM, we rely on the optic to create the image, so we illuminate the entire target by one beam, one parallel beam in general. In direct imaging, the power of C2 lens will determine the area of illumination on the target. The objective lens is responsible for the major magnification in the microscope in TEM. It has two parts, above the specimen and below. The two combined eliminate the rotation of the image by the Lorentz force. We can adjust the objective lens strength with the control, which is called focus, and indeed we can correct for the focusing on specific plane of the specimen or out of the specimen. Here is a second image, the below part. Here is the specimen and the objective, the second objective lens. And at the back focal plane, we can add aperture, which is the objective aperture, which can modify the contrast in direct mode illumination when we use it to show the images themselves. After all that, there is the projector lens that focus the image on the scintillator plate, which shows the image by eye, or we can remove the plate and absorb the scattering from the camera. In diffraction mode, we aim to look at Bragg scattering points, which are the diffraction pattern of the specimen. The diffraction pattern is formed on the back focal plane of the objective, and we focus our projector in order to transfer the image of the scattering points or the Bragg scattering points to the scintillator plate eventually, or the camera.
Here's a specimen of asbestos fibers in the TEM. You can see the lacy grid, the lines of the carbon underneath. You see the fibers. You can see I focus, and you see the contrast changes, and the contrast goes through zero. So here above, at focus, and under focus.
The explanation is as follows. Features in the specimen induce phase and amplitude modification of the wave function. Amplitude is negligible or induce small contrast relatively to the phase. The relation between the intensity of the pixels or the change in pixels intensity in respect to the phase changes is called the phase contrast function, which is a function of the spatial frequency S. The description, according to Scherzer, is as follows, but when we look at large features, S is small, so the first term is important. That includes delta F, which is the focus. When the focus is zero, this term is zero, and sinus of zero is zero, and we have very small contrast. When we increase or decrease the focus, we increase the phase contrast function and show more contrast to the large features.
You can see they come into focus, they go through focus and they disappear, and here above focus, over focus, at focus, and under focus. The lacy grid is the laces of carbon in the background. are actually the grid. Over focus, at focus, under focus. Now I can wobble the goniometer. I rotate back and forth, and the specimen is rotating back and forth. And you see that the sample doesn't really move. The camera has a hard time focusing. There we go. The camera doesn't move back and forth. The specimen doesn't move because it sits at exactly at the rotation center. And that's where the microscope is calibrated for what's called eucentric focus, so that the two match. Here you see it in focus. When I've set the eucentric focus, I've set the objective current to whatever is calibrated. This is calibrated to the rotation of the goniometer. So now I can under focus a little bit. And if I change the condenser, I change the size of the illuminated region. So I'm changing the C2 lens. I change now the size of the illuminated region. If I change what's called the spot size, that's the C1 lens, then I change the brightness, but not the size. So we have this curious situation that the spot size changes the brightness and the intensity changes the size of the illumination. Now I raise the magnification, going up in steps. I can jump up, and I need to converge the beam to illuminate the proper area. I can go through the focus, and you see diffraction. I can go to the parallel beam. I can go into diffraction mode now, and now you see the diffraction spots, the Bragg diffraction sharply. I can focus and defocus the Bragg diffraction. Once I focus the Bragg diffraction and the central spot, that means that my illumination was parallel. And when I go back to the diffraction mode, now I have parallel illumination. This is a large condenser aperture. Now I'm going to change the condenser apertures. I go to a smaller size, and you see the field of view is now smaller and smaller. Move the specimen in, and the smallest one here. So the field of view is tiny. I can expand it by changing the condenser aperture, but I'm no longer then in parallel illumination. So I go back to the big one. And go back to diffraction mode and make sure that I'm focused. This is a diffraction with a convergent beam or a divergent beam. This is the way we normally want to image. When I change the intensity knob, the beam goes in and out of parallel condition. You can see the contrast change in the diffraction. Go back to diffraction mode. You see the spots going in and out of focus. In focus, I'm back to parallel. I can put an objective aperture in. That enhances the contrast in real space. See, the contrast is now sharper, and these diffraction diffracting fringes are sharper. And if I look at the diffraction pattern, you see what's happened. is that we've cut out most of the diffraction. Can put it back in. So whatever power diffracted into these spots is now missing from the image formation.